I'm not referring to police sirens, ambulance sirens, or anything of that sort. That would be preferable at this point. It's been about 24 odd hours since the civil defense sirens began their shrill, deafening roar, waking up my entire city. It's omnipresent, forever signaling some sort of attack, some sort of assault on the city. A sleepy, medium-sized Midwestern town, whose only claim to recognition is having an above-average obesity rate. But worse yet, there isn't a single news story on the matter. Not even so much as a comment from the local news station or my nosy neighbors on Twitter. The sirens picked up around 5 a.m. last night, jolting me from my already less than peaceful slumber. My neighbor, something of a kook, mind you, seemed to have been screaming in the early morning hours. My initial reaction was that these sirens were a mistake, a sort of false alarm, akin to what had happened over in Hawaii years prior. Within minutes, I got a myriad of concerned texts from my neighbors and acquaintances, including the hectic group chat between myself and my perpetually misinformed neighbors. A twister maybe, I don't remember reading about rain. Ain't no twister, are you stupid? It's probably some other country. Damn it, Jim, ain't no one gonna bomb, redacted. There's nothing of value here. I began to develop an agonizing migraine about 15 minutes into the siren song, likely only exacerbated by the incoherent musings of my social circle. I went to walk outside for a bit of relief, but right before my sweaty palm touched the doorknob to walk out, a new notification came across my phone screen. Emergency alert. Tornado warning in this area until 5:45 a.m. Stay away from windows and take shelter now. Check local media. I paused and walked back to my kitchen, a little bit puzzled. We hadn't received any thunderstorms lately. Had we, I would have known. In fact, I definitely would have known. I work with the National Weather Service. What the heck? We didn't send this notification. My mind began to wander, trying to rationalize this alert and the sirens that seemed to only be amplifying. I hurried onto my laptop and plugged in the link to the ongoing Doppler radar. I was correct. No storms within a 200-mile radius. Understandably a little freaked out, I phoned a coworker of mine at the NWS, who I hoped was working the graveyard shift. I just prayed that we hadn't made an error that scared the living bejesus out of our town. "Hey, Craig," he answered. "Yeah, look, man. Did we send that alert? The sirens are freaking everybody out. The tornado alert, everything. What happened?" He paused for a second and seemed to mutter something under his breath. Something to the effect of, "They're nothing. That can't be right." "Listen," he picked back up. "We found a credible threat of severe weather, and the local authorities were then notified to authorize the sirens." I scoffed and picked back up the phone. "What are you talking about? What severe weather? These sirens, my God, they're obnoxious. Can the boss give the local whatever, the call for the local authorities to just shut them off?" "This is out of my control, Craig." "What?" "Just stay inside. Please, just stay inside. There's a credible threat." And with that, the line abruptly cut out. My phone played back that shrill, automated message of, "We're sorry, the person you're trying to reach has been disconnected." I kicked the ever-living crap out of my wall and cursed profusely before regaining my composure. My coworker seemed more concerned than agitated, and at the very least, authentic in his seeming fear. But this wasn't tornado levels of fear. We had both seen our fair share of insane storms come across the radar that we knew could produce tornadoes. Worse yet, we never thought much of them. We would authorize a text alert, but never ever would we have to kick in the civil defense sirens. I got a few text notifications from neighbors asking me to meet them outside. One text chain so eloquently read, "Twisters, BS, it's sunny outside. I'm gonna go check." Well, I was reading online that somebody was planning an attack. You don't know what you're talking about. The incoherent hordes of text coming across my screen from conspiratorial old folk were too much to handle. They seemed to be meeting out in the street to discuss and try to talk over the incredibly loud, insanely persistent air sirens. They just kept chirping. They would slow down, and then ring in your ears all over again. Not wanting to see my neighbors, I turned on my TV and set the channel to the local news. Before I could listen in, I heard a change in tone from the sirens. I mean, they were still absolutely drowning out any and all noise in my house, but I could faintly hear another pitch beneath them, almost like a faint squeal. I shrugged it off, tried to remain nonplussed, and kicked on this aptly titled Early Bird News. Wait, where the heck were the newscasters? Tom and Donna are usually on at 5:30 every morning. On my silver screen was the instantly recognizable channel Redacted Newsroom, just minus the news team. Yet the headlines rolled across the screen regardless. Some political, other about local events, but nothing mentioning severe weather or these insanely annoying sirens. Frustrated, I went to check on my friends outside, but as I inched closer to my front door, I could hear that immensely irritating pitch beneath the sirens. Curious, I began to take a few steps back and noticed a definitive change in tone. No more faint garbles beneath the sirens, just the roar of that oh-so-annoying cry. Another text notification caught my glimpse on the screen. Emergency alert. Tornado warning lifted. All clear to resume your day. Check local media. The National Weather Service. I breathed a sigh of relief for just a second, but my anxieties weren't assuaged. In fact, I was more suspicious than before. The tornado warning was lifted, but the air sirens kept howling, this time tangibly louder. I could just tell. Another text notification. Has anybody seen Marcy? She was supposed to come back inside for tea, but she's not answering her phone. Really? It's the same with Susan. I'll go out and see what's going on. Seconds later, that hissing, awful pitch beneath these sirens kicked back up, this time far stronger than before. In fact, this time, I realized it wasn't just a frequency nor a pitch. I walked over by the door to get a better listen, and it hit me. They're the screams of my neighbors, and the sirens are meant to drown them out. It's been another 23 hours, and I eagerly await a news broadcast, or a text notification, or even a tweet explaining what's going on. My migraine is so excruciating now that I feel my head might explode. I wonder, more worryingly, what became of my neighbors, my coworkers, and my friends. But until the maddening sirens come to a close, I'm not opening my front door, as much as I want to escape the grating sound. I'm not venturing out there, lest I dare become another scream beneath the sirens. I think back to my phone conversation with my coworker, who won't pick up his dang phone. Only now do I realize, I think he had said, "They're coming." Spring is the most unsettling season. Its message of implicit rebirth of all that decayed during winter's duration. Its flourishing degraded by unyielding frost only to blossom. Animals roam the forest. The great waters nourish all that dwells within and without. All of nature appears as it did just the year before. What of the past 10 years? We still assume little changes. Somehow, we've separated man from this notion of yearly renewal through spring. Not symbolically, but rather ideologically. We ascribe to hyper-atomism, that every human being is so unique in essence that not only are they irreplaceable, the world becomes forever altered once they expire. Pull the trigger. Gunsmoke is the only pleasant odor that fills my senses. The weight of my rifle is the alleviation of the weight on her shoulders. Simultaneously, it distributes that weight to all who knew her. Yet the world keeps spinning. Yet, in the grand scheme of things, little has changed us towards the point of societal rupture. She will be replaced by some other nobody who can do her job just as good, better or worse than her at the same pay rate. In the end, the uniqueness of her cubist paintings is less important than my paycheck. Frankly, the world isn't worse off with one less artist. Before him, she held the same level of consequence to my life that others did. Simply put, she was inconsequential. Another human who would inevitably expire like myself. And then he altered everything last night. Every fundamental of my worldview has been altered and made irreparable. We conceive of the criminal as someone so concretely inhuman in their actions, yet wish to judge them by the standards reserved to typical humans. That's the parody of justice, that it is unjust. How can you sleep at night? The people ask the dangerous man who commits a murder. Like a baby, he replies, just as any soldier or officer of the law. Perhaps he has his nightmares on occasion. I know I do. Justice is a collective of standards we utilize to assume the worst of people. A litmus test to turn imperfect men into demons if they don't stand up to the morals of angels. Surely those that do wrong must have the victim on their mind. The victims rarely bubble to the surface at the locality of thought. In fact, they are an afterthought. You could end a life while deciding whether to eat out or cook at home. You could multitask multiple conversations while choking someone with their own tie. Just as any man, the perpetrator of crime sleeps soundly in their bed, living in the only place our dreams come true. But last night, I couldn't sleep. It was no sense of guilt that kept me awake. There was no nagging at my chest that screamed, "It was so vile of you to end her life. She had everything ahead of her." I think what kept me up was how she smiled just before the bullet tore through her shoulder. I think it was how I had missed the shot. She let out a toddler's cry. Her golden retriever of a boyfriend tried to help her. His brain matter got scattered across the ground. Blood pooled around him. Collateral damage. The target bled from her neck and shoulder, thanks to the bullet her boyfriend took. One casing became two. Sloppy. Very sloppy. Cleaners are supposed to be good at what they do, just as anyone with any other job. The essence of doing a good job is paired with good guidelines. My guidelines are as follows. Do not conduct business without a down payment. Do not conduct business on sacred ground. Do not utilize torture unless requested by client. Do not take life without cause. Do not create unnecessary collateral damage. Do not attract attention to the scene. Do not leave evidence. Do not leave witnesses. Do not get caught. If caught and likely to die, clean yourself. Cleaning her boyfriend because he was an annoyance or he got in the way or shouldn't have tried to help is the quality of amateur work. It's a mistake that a teenager would make, not someone who might as well be tenured in his field. I don't typically miss my shots. 99 out of 100 times that I make a shot, it hits. But instead, this woman was the one time I missed and it clipped her shoulder. So I wasted 2 bullets when I should have only had to use 1 for a simple scrub. I could have made the shot without taking out her boyfriend. I just didn't feel like it. There were no witnesses who could say I did the kill. No evidence left. I didn't get caught either. He's dead because I felt like it. What an easy way to break. Do not take a life without cause, and do not create unnecessary collateral damage. I decided my reputation was on the line because I could not follow my own rules. I got out of bed and I put on an advert. I mentioned that I wanted late night work. The extra cash would be good, and it would help me with the storm of other contractors suggesting I was incompetent at my job for the screw-up. I'm a popular cleaner. The affluent clients see me as affordable and efficient. It takes 10 minutes at most for me to get contract offers the moment I make myself available. This time, it took half an hour to receive just 7. Great. The inquiry read, 5-7. I have a contract for you at the address listed below. A photo of the stain that needed to be cleaned is attached. Is the normal rate okay? I know I don't usually make late night calls, but you said you were available for work, and I have an issue that I need handled. After I look at the photo of my mess to clean and the address, I wrote back that I agree. We began discussing details. When do you want him dropped off? Now. What type of round would you like used? Any. Would you like torture? No, end it quickly. Is there a particular reason you want a priest killed? He's in front of my house. An hour later, and I'm against the rails of a water tower that overlooks the unconsciousness of suburbia. The streetlights are on. The house lights are snuffed, save for the house where my client lives. The TV is on. Blue light flickered on and off, casting a glimpse of my client's pursuer that's half bathed in yellow lamps. Compact, custom-made, select fire, and suppressed. My rifle is every bit the professional that I am. My stand is around 100 meters away, so I set my rifle on the railing, adjust for the bullet drop my small caliber weapon uses, and confirm his identity. A young man in a soutane, a beretta, and a full-length cape. He's got on glasses that glint every time the depth of the TV and the streetlight crosses paths. His side profile displayed little ears. I'm sorry to see them turn to maggot food, but I'm more sorry for my fractured career that might not survive a week with rumors spreading. It's him or me. I never bothered asking my client why the police couldn't handle a priest outside of his house. I regret not doing that. Sweet, intoxicating gun smoke. No awakened suburbia. No witnesses, no collateral damage. And no street painted red from a skull split by a bullet. I don't miss. I fired again and again and again. At his head, at his shoulders, at his heart, even at his feet. Not one bullet killed him. In fact, they all flew through him. The only thing that is pierced is the street, now riddled with bullet holes so closely packed that they'd be split if they were arrows. I wasted 15 rounds on a man that wouldn't fall. By the time he appeared, fed up with my futile efforts to wipe him from the history books, he turned to me, showing his face. He's got a sharp jaw, enough to cut through steel. More beautiful than an angel, but far more grotesque than an eldritch abomination. His complexion is pale as paper, his lips pink, his features seeming exponentially generic. He's confident in owning the magnificence he exudes, except for his eyes. 2 gaping maws of endless shadow stared at me, puffy around the sockets as if he had been crying. What could elicit tears from this nose-rotting, hollow-cheeked, decaying-skinned entity escapes me. Those chasms burned through my own eyes and I fired him again, even though I know that he won't fall. Even though his sprint brought him closer to me with each passing second. He screams. To say that undermines the cacophonous wail that he released. It shattered windows, and once he ran in my direction, the lights of the houses sprung to life in fright. Every bullet I free goes through him. At the base of the water tower, he stops and stares up at me, his finger a declarative act against me. The click of my rifle is an inconvenience, the sign of an empty magazine. I take a knee, incompetent and clunky. I set the empty magazine aside, and once I finish reloading, I wish I had doubled my fee. He stared down at me, and I peered into the netherworld of his non-existent eyes, transfixed by the darkness. He screams, and then his hand grips my face. "Why did you kill me?" She rasped from the ground, her head up. "We were getting married tomorrow," her boyfriend says, the ring on his finger shining. "You took everything from us. You took everything from us. There is no peace, only pain. Only pain." I reach for my hip and I don't find my trusty sidearm, and the couple has got up from the ground. Pools of blood entangle them. Warm ropes of mucus pool from their bloody sockets. As they get closer, I can see the spewed maggots from their empty sockets. The boyfriend tripped over her but crawled towards me, unhindered. "My mother won't have grandkids now. My father will die without his nurse," she says. I step back and bump into a mound of something slimy. I turn around and I spot a tall man. His face is melting away. His body is covered in burn marks. His lips are glued shut. His hand extended for me, but I swatted and stepped to the side. His arm flew off and a mound of dirt in the ground. And then I'm at the top of the Space Needle, my pistol pointed to someone's back. He turns his head like an owl, yellow eyes peering at me. Nothing. Every kill flashes before my eyes, each strangulation, every bullet fired, every throat slit, every face that I buried in dirt. And then he's standing in front of me, the priest, with those hollow sockets lit up like balls of fire. "It's just business." His jaw unhinged and he opened wide. Mounds of dirt and worms wiggled free. He went for a bite. And then I sat up in my bed, sweat pooled on my sheets. "Another nightmare?" I asked. There was only one way to know. I opened my phone and checked the account I used for contracts. My last transaction was the complete payment for vacuuming from my client's pseudonym. There's also his down payment. And then the shadow of a roach skittered by my vision, its legs like pincers against the organ. He stood in the corner of the room. Clouds of decay hovered at his ankles. My sheets are warm with blood that isn't mine. I haven't slept all night.